I thought this part was going to be a lot longer than it's going to be because just a couple of weeks ago the IRS pulled back on a change that was going to be implemented for January 1st, and we have a stay of execution for another year. It is, and when I say that, it is, I consider it very bad. And they delayed it not because there was any sort of problems with the form or any disagreements. It was because payroll companies and payroll software companies were not able to implement this change fast enough. And what I'm talking about is the W-4 form. You know, as we've all seen them and worked with them, I can tell you, you mark single, married, number of allowances, additional withholding, and if you're exempt, you know, 4 simple boxes. The W-4, and not for 2019, like I said, it's delayed until 2020, is going to have no more allowances. Instead, the employee is going to fill out 5 boxes, and the top one being how much non-wage income do you have subject to withholding, such as interest, dividends, or any other, you know, rental income. Line 6 is how much are your itemized deductions. And again, this is information that the employee is going to be giving you on their W-4 form. The next one is enter any tax credits you get. What? Who determines?
Who determines the allowance?
You're saying
The employee
is going to know this information?
Yeah, you know, this is the W-4. I cut off the top part, which is your name and address and social security number. This is the employee that will fill this out. All right, so the question, well, let me get through the rest of the boxes because then the next, line number 8, is how much other income do you make from other places other than the jobs you're going to be working at. And if you're married and your spouse makes more than you, put your spouse's income in that box. So now one of the questions came up was, are they filling this out for last year's income taxes? No, it's meant to be, the employee's supposed to estimate the current year's income taxes in these numbers to, in the end, determine how much withholding they are going to need to have to cover their tax bill at the end of the year. So, and to make it easy for the employees, this now comes with an 11-page instruction manual. And then line 9 is how much additional you want. So after all that's calculated, how much additional. There is talk that since this is being delayed, they may sneak in one more box that is the opposite of how much less do you want withheld from your check, which is all going to be very interesting. There is going to be a transition year, so as I said, this was supposed to take effect like January 1st, 2019. Now it is 2020. The transition year will be 2020, so new hires, you would hire them with this form. Our payroll system has to be able to accommodate both forms because we still have the people that are still single, 2, married, 3, and so forth. So we need to be able to look at whichever form is populated in our system to determine withholding. Then by 2021, number of allowances is gone completely.
So current employee.
Yeah.
So many of these questions are so invasive, and why are they the business of the employer?
It is invasive, and what's, like I said, surprised me is
How can that be
so the IRS says in lieu of filling out this form, the employee can go to the IRS website. They will have a calculator, which has not been released. They released it as a preview and then they pulled it back, where the employee can fill in these numbers and it will give them some sort of magic number that they will just populate. I think it's going to go on line 9 on the form. It's just an amount to withhold. So it is.
So So that's the way of getting around giving all that detailed information to your employer.
Yeah, it's
So we have to
just
train
saying,
all
how
these
much you
people
want
how
to
to do
withhold.
this.
Well, Romeo, they can't fill out the current form. How is
So there is no more, if they don't fill out the form, it was single zero if they don't fill it out. Single zero does not exist or won't exist
So,
2020.
and you said in 2021, everyone's gonna go on this form.
Yeah.
Will we have to then have current employees who
Yeah.
will never change their update?
Yeah, so 2021 now, which was going to be 2020, all employees have to have completed this new form because payroll systems will no longer, there won't be a tax table that will allow us to calculate taxes on a number of allowances. So, like I said, so we will have that transition year where we will have two different tax tables in our system. Yeah, sorry, there's a little glare. So if anyone wants to be a CPA or get your accounting degree, there's going to be a lot of employees who need assistance. You have students coming out of if you're a teenager getting your first job, it may be easy if they're below the $6,000 some odd dollars, the personal exemption. Then they can just fill out line 10, which is exempt. The same as they can do now, and there's no income tax with that. So, like I said, so this is, I consider a state of execution for another year because it's going to be messy. What we have to deal with for this year, I think is equally as messy. As we know, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017, it came in late in the year, and the IRS did not come up with tax tables until February. So we were still running on 2017 tax tables until it came out. The majority of workers saw a decrease in their income tax withholding, and everybody celebrated and figured they had extra money on their checks. That may have just been a facade and may not be the case. The IRS has been running publicity campaigns of saying, check your taxes, check your withholding, seek a tax advisor. They even came out with a website. It's linked right on their irs.gov, but if you go to irs.gov/getready, there's all sorts of resources about completing taxes at the end of this year. And I love the highlighted part I said, standing out here is, you may receive a smaller refund or even owe an unexpected tax bill. So I think what happened is they decreased the withholding tables a little too much, and employees who are expecting a big refund, and I think what it means to payroll departments is that as your employees file their taxes in February, March, April, who never owed taxes before and now they owe, or maybe they're getting a very small refund, are going to come into your payroll department saying, what did you do to my check? Why do I owe taxes this year? But the IRS is trying to warn as many people as they can. And there is a link to the withholding calculator right on that irs.gov webpage. Let's see. Last thing on W-4s, the question we get is, do they expire? If an employee fills out a W-4, well, I guess now they do kind of expire in 2021. But W-4s don't expire unless the employee writes exempt. If they are writing exempt and they have no income tax withheld, that expires on February 15th of that following year. And the employee's supposed to fill out a new form. If they don't, you are supposed to change them to single zero. What happens in 2021 when people don't fill out? There is no more single zero. I don't have the answer to that yet, but I guess come back next year and we'll have the conclusion of this story. All right, next big thing that's coming out. A lot of publicity to payroll companies or correspondence from the government. Social Security may have sent notices so far announcing what is going to happen. They are on the warpath for Social Security number mismatches. In the past, if you had names and numbers that don't match, you had to be a very high percentage of mismatches in your company. If you have 100 employees and 10 people didn't match, they wouldn't blink twice about it. You'd have to get up like close to 60% mismatches. What is happening at the end of this year is that if there is one employee whose name and number does not match, you will get a letter. I don't know exactly when yet. Our filing due date to Social Security is January 31st, so I suspect maybe sometime February, March. You will get what they call an educational correspondence. It will tell you who does not match and provide you with instructions to go to the Social Security website to correct that mismatch. There's always been a law in the books that said if you file a W-2 and the name and number do not match, there's a $50 penalty per form. In our industry, we believe this is the first step that Social Security is implementing in order to kind of fire a warning shots to say, hey, we are now serious about this, and quite possibly the next round is going to be, all right, it doesn't match, there's the $50 penalty. Yes? Yeah, so what could happen is the question of is someone changes their name. And we see that often. Someone's married in July, they change their name with Social Security Administration. And unless you got a wedding invitation, you may never know that there's a name change. And maybe there wouldn't be a name change. And that could cause a mismatch for that reason. We do provide a service of verifying all of your entire population's Social Security numbers with Social Security. We do that late in November, so we try to do it as close to the end of the year. And, if we run that for you, we would send you a list of who does not match, so you have some time to find out what happened before the end of the year. The next big thing is it's still kind of, I say quiet, but there is probably going to be a federal minimum wage change. The last time we had one was 2009 to $7.25 an hour. There are 21 states that have a minimum wage that's indexed to inflation. Florida is one of them. So every year in October, the state of Florida announces the new minimum wage. It was published recently. It's going to be $8.46. So since we are above the federal minimum wage, we really don't care about the federal, unless the federal jacks up. We don't think it would go as high as 15. Although if you read the news in the last week or so, Seattle implemented a $15 minimum wage, $15.45 for employees who do not get benefits. And there was a lot of talk when that was implemented that it was going to be bad for the economy. Well, just within the last week, I've started seeing articles that a university has published that it's actually quite the opposite. It was better for the employees. So, is that going to be the trend? We don't know. There are 21 states who do not have a minimum wage, so it does fall back to the federal. 2018, 18 states did increase their minimum wage, all on January 1st. That's when most states implemented, except New York likes to be different. They are going to be 12/31/2018. And we do get questions I hear coming in about, when do I change the rate? It is for time worked on January 1st. It is based on the day the employee worked. So if you have a check date of January 2nd, and the pay period for that check date is all in December, then that would be paid at the old rate. Sometimes employees will say, well, my check is, my payday is January 4th, I'm still at the old rate. That is correct. The only time you have the issue is if your pay period straddles January 1st, and then you have the decision to make of, do I just change the rate and pay all the hours at the new rate? In many cases, that is less of a hassle if you're dealing with just a few cents. But if you have a system that is able to break down the hours by pay rate, then that's certainly within your abilities. So, any questions kind of as I'm going along? Yes, Kathy?
When you do the matching, what's not working that's wrong?
When you, the matching?
The TID matching.
Yeah, so the Social Security number matching is only done through Social Security Administration.
Oh, okay.
As a company, as a business, you can go to ssa.gov/employer, and on that site you can create an account. They will let you, I believe, validate 5 employees at a time just by keying in their information. So key in a name, key in social. If you have date of birth and gender, they will tell you if that matches as well. And you can do that. And there's no charge if you do that. If you have more than 5 employees at a time, then they do want you uploading some sort of data file. Yes.
We still pay you guys to do it?
You still pay us to do it.
Yay.
Yeah, our fee, I don't believe it's that much. I think it's $45, and we'll check the entire population of your company. We prepare it, when we send it back to you, we put it in kind of plain English, and we translate all the codes that SSA sends back in the file. Right. Other changes for 2000. Oh, okay. So lunch is being served, so I will start resume on this slide after lunch, so there's a good break. Enjoy lunch.
Crowd is tough, and so he wanted us to play his favorite song as he walks out. He's still talking. He rocks out to the song in his office all the time. It's a little awkward, but it's okay. He's still talking. Start jamming. Come on. Not until he starts walking. Okay, ready? Okay, Romeo, do your thing. Sing a song. You act like you do in your office this. Come on, do it.
All right, so I'm going to start.
Okay. I'll video it and send it to you guys. It's hilarious. You'll be in there doing a demo.
That's why I don't have a webcam. All right, so the continuation of the tax story. Oh, and the presentations, the PowerPoints will all be loaded onto our website. Rick said probably by later next week. We're also trying to do video as we did the prior year to actually post a video of the presenters. So for those who didn't get to make it from your office, if you want to share with others or or if you want to see prior years, we have them posted out there. All right, so other 2019 changes to rates and amounts. The Social Security taxable wage base is $132,900. That came out the other month. I kind of questioned whether that would change. If you recall, last year they came out with the Social Security wage base, and then sometime mid-November they changed it again. And the reason for that was kind of on the, well, at the bottom here, the due date for W-2s for Social Security Administration is January 31st. That's not only the date you need to provide them to your employees, but they need to be filed to the Social Security Administration. That used to be March 31st. So because the IRS accelerated that due date by 2 months the other year, there are a lot more W-2Cs that are being filed, and the Social Security wage base is based on, among other things, an average national income. So when all these W-2Cs came in, because of that accelerated due date, they had to readjust the wage base. So as of right now, that's what it is. It's subject to change. Yesterday, the IRS announced the 401k, 403b wage limit of 19. IRA contributions is 6. I do not believe the catch-up contribution is changing. Supplemental withholding tax rate on bonuses or other compensation is going to remain at 22% unless it's over $1 million bonus. In that case, it's 37%. We have not had this in Florida for many years. We had it, I think about 8 years ago, the last time, maybe 7. The federal unemployment tax credit reduction. If the state does not have enough money to pay for unemployment taxes, they can borrow against the federal fund, and the state has just a few years to pay that money back to the Fed. It is a loan, and if they don't pay it back, the federal takes it out on all businesses in that state by increasing your unemployment tax rate. They just announced a couple of weeks ago that for this year, the Virgin Islands is the only state, or kind of state, that has this credit reduction, this extra federal unemployment tax. So last year it was California and Virgin Islands. Virgin Islands owes over $90 million to the federal government, so I suspect that is going to be around for a long time. As I have on the bottom there, that changed a couple of years ago, the accelerated January 31st due date. Some things that are on the horizon that have been introduced, that have passed the House. There are some interesting things on here. The federal unemployment tax, as we were just talking about, our rate is currently 0.6. Back in 1976, they implemented a surtax of 0.2%. Now, it was supposed to be a temporary tax to fund the federal unemployment compensation fund. That temporary tax stuck around for 35 years. It just kept getting extended and extended. 2011, it did not get extended, so we have not had this 0.2%, but there is talk about that being restored in the coming year. And considering our tax rate is 0.6, it's a 33% increase in your federal unemployment taxes. Paid family leave, there's been a number of states that have been implementing this on the state level. Nothing for Florida has been chattered about, but on a national level, they are looking to regulate this and put something across the board so every state doesn't have some sort of paid family medical leave limit. Mandatory E-Verify. In the state of Florida, we do not have mandatory E-Verify. That's where you have to validate whether that individual is able to work, unless you're a government contractor. So in Florida right now, it's optional. There's a bill that was introduced to make this a national mandatory. This next one is kind of fun. They want to issue everyone a brand new social security number. Because social security numbers are so compromised and in the hands of bad people doing bad things with them, they came up with the idea of let's just give everyone a new number. So that passed the House in April of this year, and we'll see where that goes. But that will be interesting. Comp time. Sometimes I'm asked about comp time. You know, can an employee work 42 hours this week and I don't pay them overtime, and carry that over to the next week? That is not legal. It is on the government sector. This passed the House May 17 to apply this down to private companies. So another interesting one to keep a lookout for. Mobile workforce state tax simplification. That's a big term, and basically what it means is if you have employees who go to work in other states. So if you are based in Florida, you have an employee that goes to work in Georgia, every state can dictate that says how long that employee performs work in that state, whether they are a working resident of that state. And every state has something different. Some states you have to work for so many hours in the state to be considered a resident for state income tax. This past June 2017 of making a national rule that determines what is considered a status of being taxed, state income tax in that state. I believe the employee has to work 30 or 60 days in that state, so it is going to be a looser law than some states currently have. The bottom one is interesting for those that file 1099s. So as your payroll service, we file your W-2s for your employees at the end of the year. Social Security says unless you have over 250 W-2s, you can file it still on the red paper. We file everything electronically. I don't want any paper in our offices for any reason. So one employee, we file it on paper. What this aggregation rule says is that 250 count is now going to span all of your forms. So if you are filing 1099 forms for your company, and you can file 10, as of this year, you can file them on paper. If the combined quantity of your 1099s and W-2s exceeds 250, everything has to be electronic. So we could be filing your W-2s electronically. You would need to file your 1099s electronically if they total more than 250 combined.
That doesn't include the ACA reporting.
And it also includes ACA
So it
forms,
does,
too.
that's on top
Yeah.
of it. So it's 2 for employees.
Yeah.
So a lot of us would hit that.
Yeah, it's all individual forms that are filed. They look at now as an aggregate.
So 1094s, W-2s, and 1099s are all the same.
1099s, and any 1099s you may have, miscellaneous, Rs, interest, dividends, they're now all, well again, it's proposed regulation, so it's not it yet, but that one is moving faster.
I have a question. So would you be able to file 1099s for us, for people that we just loaded the data once a year out of our accounting system?
Sure. We have companies now that will, at the end of the year, December or late December, load in the 1099 individuals. Depending on which system you're in, you can mark a box under 1099s and then just load in a manual check for their year-to-date payment. And then we will print the 1099s for the individual. They would be posted to their self-service portal, and we would file them to IRS by January 31st.
I have a question on that same thing. So right now, you guys do our payroll, and we do have people you're paying the 1099, but then we have people that we pay that you don't know about that are 1099s? We can supply their names and
Yeah. Yeah, you just
wage.
load them in, and you can load them in, mark them as terminated as soon as you hire them in.
And put
Just
the
a
lump
load.
sum they got in 2018.
Yeah, just a lump sum. So talking about ACA, for every year up until last year, they come in at the last moment and they go, all right, we're going to extend the due date, to March 31st. This year, they are saying we are not extending the due date. So the deadline for furnishing the ACA 1095 forms, 1094 forms to the employees is January 31st, same as the W-2s. The individual mandate is gone for next year, but it still applies to the employer. The employer's shared responsibility still is in effect as of right now. Speaking about the penalty, they are just now figuring out 2015 penalties. So letters have gone out August, September for 2015. I know many in this room have received one of these letters, and if you called me about it, I'm going to tell you the first thing I would say is, don't panic. They are very intimidating. It's a stack of pages. And usually, I just kind of highlighted on here, the right side of the screen is the right side of the cover page, and then right in the middle, it says your penalty is $134,333 for this company I grabbed this from. I think this may be somebody in this room. Some important information on it. At the top right, it tells you what year it's for. Again, they're just now doing 2015. They're not quite finished. We'll get 2016, I believe sometime before the end of the year. And the important thing to note is the due date, or the response date. Some sort of response needs to be given back to the IRS before that due date. Yeah, so some sort of response needs to be sent back, and you can respond, I just need more time to figure this out. That's a valid response. If you can certainly package your response, which I'll show you in the next couple of slides. It is very easy to respond to these, and you want to get your response in as soon as possible, because at the first stage, it is just an IRS clerk that is fumbling through these, and you do not want your case escalated up to the next level. That's fine. So you do want to try to respond to this notice and not let it go beyond that. The first few months of notices that came out, it actually listed a name of an IRS person on there that you can call and talk to regarding your case. They stopped that, and now they just put response unit.
Yeah.
All right, so in that package, one of the pages is your response letter, and it's the form 14764. Just a couple of check boxes on the side saying whether you disagree, which I would say you're going to disagree unless you actually know you're not providing benefits and you're expecting this penalty letter. And then the other options are, yeah, I agree and I'm making a full payment, partial payment, installment payments, whatever it may be. So check the box, you disagree. And then the next part of the letter is going to be the response form, 14765. You're only penalized for a month if that employee went and received a subsidy for that particular month. So you could be in violation for the entire year for that employee, but if they only go get a subsidy for 1 month or 2 months, then that's all you're responsible for paying a penalty on. And basically what's happening is you are funding that shortage. So each employee is listed on the left, and kind of what we see here in gray, and the IRS is highlighting that. It says no PTC, which is no premium tax credit, which means the IRS does not care about those months. So don't give them more of a response on anything that they don't care about. I suspect that could cause some other problems. Then the months that are not highlighted, that it does not say no PTC, those are the months that the IRS is concerned with that something is wrong. The first row is going to list what was indicated on the employee's 1095 form. In this case, 1E, which I wish Shannon was here to tell you what a 1E is. I believe that's full-time employee eligible for benefits. There is no to code in these particular cases. So we kind of see the employee underneath here. This one, they're in violation of these first 2 months, but these others is a 1H2A, which I think is maybe probationary period. I'm not quite sure. And then no premium tax credit for this month, so they don't care. All the IRS wants you to do is on this second row, just write what they are. So within their probationary period, not employed full time, whatever that reason is that they didn't take the insurance. The IRS does not want you sending them like their personnel file of them waiving. They don't want you to send your insurance policies. If you send all that, the agent is going to get it and it's going to cause delays. I say on this particular case, you're just going to write in those 2 letters, and that's it. When you are done, there is going to be a fax number on that cover page, and you want to fax your response in. They do give you a mailing address to mail it in, but if you mail it in, when we respond to tax notices, I will tell you that it takes at least 3 weeks from the date it's mailed before it's on someone's desk for them to do anything with it. It goes through their mail center, and it goes through their campus. Faxing it in, it goes right to this department. And certainly don't mail it and fax it. That would also cause some other problems. So when you fax it, make sure it goes through. If you have a fax confirmation page, make sure that the total number of pages that you sent were sent. Keep that with your response. So if the IRS comes back and says you didn't respond, you have some sort of documentation. Are there any questions on this ACA penalties? No? Right now, the IRS for 2015 is just sending out penalty notices based on forms that were filed. If you were one of the companies that I've talked to a couple that said, I'm not doing it, and they are not issuing 1095, 1094 to their employees. The IRS, starting now in November, is going back to see who is not filing, who should be. They are looking at the W-2 count, because they know how many W-2s were sent, and they're looking at it and say, okay, if you file 100 W-2s, you most likely needed to have filed ACA forms and you didn't, and we're going to find you that way. They're starting with the greatest number of W-2s, and they're working their way down the list. So they will find us. All right, so this last slide here is kind of our changes for this year, really, for this month. The other month, at the end of September, the FBI issued a bulletin, an alert regarding payroll phishing. And it is very dangerous out there. You know, we try to safeguard your data. For those of you on PayMaster HCM, you know we implemented two-factor authentication years ago. So when you log into the system, you know, as much as you may think it's a pain in the butt that, you know, if you're logging in from a new computer, you've got to wait for the text code to come to your phone and then key in the text code. That is there to protect you from exactly this. What happens, and I was at a seminar a couple of weeks ago, and the agent was talking, and he said he has 6 children, and he tells his children, you know, our house is only secure as the last one coming in the door. That's kind of how this is. If your employee, and within our PayMaster HCM, employees have the ability to change their direct deposit accounts. Some chose not to have that ability, some chose to have that ability. So an employee gets their login compromised, criminal logs in, changes the direct deposit account number to a pay card, and then they just sit there waiting for payday. And the criminal gets paid, the employee will call and say, I didn't get my paycheck. They say, well, we direct deposited to you. Well, then you find out it went to some other account. Now, for those that your employees can't change their information, well then, as an administrator, you are the victim. You know, you can go in and set up direct deposit accounts and change accounts. So when a criminal gets a hold of an administrator account, what they do is they will log in, change as many employee accounts that they can to pay cards, and if they know how to run a payroll, they will then run a payroll for the next day, and they will just pay everyone to pay cards. And sometimes by the time you know, they've already worked on the funds. So what we are implementing, I've been talking to our CIO Joshua about this, and what we are implementing, I believe he's going to have this up and running for tomorrow or for Monday, is that you know, we feel we do good when protecting you with the two-factor authentication. That keeps out a lot of people. So someone in Romania or another country, you know, if they get your username and password, they're not able to log in unless they've also possibly compromised your email account and they're getting the code sent to the email. And the other thing I found out is what criminals will do is they will find out who your cell phone provider is, contact your cell phone provider, say they lost their phone, get the service switched over to a new device, and on that moment when they activate that phone, they will have the code sent out, it will go to their phone, and they're accessing accounts that way. So I don't know if you've ever, you know, tried to change phone number, change devices, but cell phone companies are becoming more strict on validating who you are for that reason. Yes.
Our email account in my company was hacked, and people pretending to be the CFO, the CEO, would directed the person in charge of payroll processing and send an email as if it was her, using the language similar to what she does in the email, saying, I now want my pay sent to this account. And it's signed up and everything like her. It was our internal email.
Yeah, so that is another way. An employee gets their email account hacked, or the criminal creates an email that's similar to that employee. You know, if they use Romeo Chicco at Gmail, they'll spell Romeo Chicco and put 1C at the end at Gmail. And you know, if you look at it quick, you go, oh yeah, that's an email. The employee is asking to change their direct deposit account, and next thing you know, it wasn't the employee that asked you. You know, I am on the board of an organization. I was on as treasurer, and I got an email like that from what looked like the president. And they said, can you send me the financial statements? I need to do a wire transfer. And as a treasurer for this organization, we had a management company, so I didn't even handle the finances of it. But I knew was not valid because it was not something that would have occurred in that organization. So what we are implementing is if an employee's direct deposit account number is changed, we are going to send an email to that employee, to the email address that's on file. It's going to say, your account number has changed, and then some text saying if you did not authorize this change, if you don't recognize this, then contact your payroll administrator. We are also sending an email to the payroll administrator that will say the same thing. The direct deposit account number for this employee or these employees has changed. Do you recognize it? So when you get that email, don't glance over it. Take a look at it. Make sure you recognize it. It doesn't take but a couple of seconds to look at it. Yes.
Romeo, I have a question about the criminals with the pay cards that you just referred to, the pay cards.
Yeah, pay cards.
Pay cards. The question I have for you in terms of your wonderful actual steps you're doing, I know, for example, with the wonderful IBM credit union, it's the young lady that's still here, but any bank obviously has the first number are your institution numbers. That's the institution that's a proper institution, hopefully. Do pay cards have those same types of things? There could be a, Danger, Marshall,
Yeah.
Robinson, that's this type of a change?
So we are doing that. So the question is, so what criminals use is they're not opening up bank accounts. They are going, and you can go into Walmart, and for $4.95 you can purchase a green dot card that will give you a routing and account number, and that's not traceable. Send direct deposit to it. They go to an ATM, take the funds out, and they're gone. We have a list, fairly extensive list of pay card routing numbers. So when we send that email out to you, we are going to give you some additional text in there if that direct deposit is set up to a pay card. So, so that way, maybe you got an email or an employee indicated a change of a direct deposit account. You load it in, and you don't know what the difference between what a pay card routing number is. When you get that email confirmation from us, it will say, this is a direct deposit to a pay card. And you recognize the change. So, maybe when you get that notification and you see it's a pay card, maybe you kind of put in an extra step to verify the employee.
At what point in the process will we get the notification to the employee? At what part of the payroll process will we?
All right, so when a direct deposit account number is added or changed, Joshua has it on a script that will send out that email within the hour. So you catch it pretty quick after it goes in. My concern is, and the email address that we're sending it to you is not one that a criminal can log in and change. It's at a place outside of their ability. So when you get that email, check it out. Or I was going to say, pay cards. All right, we'll get to your question, and then maybe I'll remember where I said.
You mentioned earlier that there is some entity somebody logs in and runs another connection payroll. Is there an alert that can be set up with?
All right, so that's where I was. Thank you. That's where I was actually going with that. So, what criminals would ultimately try to do is get into one of your accounts as an administrator, log in, change the accounts, run a payroll, submit it, and it gets processed. There is a pre-note process that when a direct deposit account is entered, we are going to validate that account out to the Federal Reserve and to the receiving bank. There are some of you in the room that have asked us to bypass that pre-note policy. So when you set up a new direct deposit account, you can check the box to cancel pre-note. We are strongly suggesting against that ability because that is what could happen. You know, if they key in a new account, the pre-note process is 5 business days. So if someone keys in a new account today and they try to run a payroll, they can't direct deposit to that account. The email would go out to you and you would have basically 5 days to recognize that as something fraudulent going on. You know, if you see a bunch of direct deposit accounts that change. Now, if you have the ability to bypass a pre-note, we are also indicating that in that email that goes out to you that says the pre-note for this direct deposit has been turned off and someone can run a payroll on it immediately. So if you do have that ability and you don't want it anymore because you can identify it as being a security risk, we can shut that down, which gives you that 5-day window to take some action before it.
So then, when you say we should use the pre-note, so their first check is gonna be a live check, and we'll mail as a live check?
Well, now, with our 2 systems, with PayMaster HCM, the way it works is when you enter in a new direct deposit account, it goes out for pre-note that evening. We send it right out. So if you key them into the system the day you hire them, I believe there's a high probability that 5 days are going to pass from the day they're hired until the day they get their first check.
So I shouldn't put a mark in the check, or check in that, and just assume it's gonna, whatever happens, happens.
Well, no, if you,
I mean, like, tell the employee they may get a direct deposit, or they may get a check depending on the date we put it in.
I think you can
Yeah.
kind of forecast it. It is 5 business days, so if you're hiring someone today and you're running payroll on Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, they're not going to get direct deposit.
Right.
But if you're keying it in today and their payday is in the Friday after next, they will be direct deposited. And it would have gone through the pre-note period, and you would have had the comfort of knowing someone's not running a fraudulent payroll.
If there's some reason we do not have an employee's email address in HCM, because they don't have them, whatever, the employee obviously will not get a notification, however, we will.
You will, yes.
And we want us at that point in time, in our best interest to confer again with the employees, or if we have the paper in front of us to see it's okay. But
If you're getting the information from the employee solely by email and you never get to talk to them, then that would be something to kind of question. Yeah. If you call them and say, hey, did you send over a new direct deposit? Because I have seen companies that it comes in from the employee and you think they are planning to change it.
All years that I've handled payroll, I'm on a bi-weekly basis. I know every 2 weeks I'm gonna do a payroll. If I have a payroll jump up in the middle of that 2 weeks, isn't somebody gonna say,
Yeah.
hey, there's a problem here?
I mean, most, on our new system, the moment our system processes the payroll, we send out a funding recap notice. So if you do see that come in and you go, I didn't run a payroll and I had something to fund, then, yeah. But you have there's a short window of time from when you get that notice. Because if the check date is the next day, or the day after, we're sending out those files that evening. Any other questions on all my happy topics for today?
How does that, over bypass the payroll schedules that we have in there? Because we have a payroll schedule and a calendar set up.
So in the system, when you go into create payroll or start payroll, your next scheduled check date is there kind of waiting. We build out your calendar a year in advance so we know when they are. But in either system, there's a button for new payroll, and you can create an off-cycle payroll. And as we approach December, there are a lot of companies that will run bonus payrolls, and will run that